All right, future officers, ready for today's deep dive. It's January 5th, 2025, and we've got a lot to cover.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Financial schemes, logistics, even a cool butterfly discovery. Plus, some health news and a new digital tool the KEG is using.
Sounds like quite the mix.
Let's start with finances. The State Bank of India, they've just launched two new deposit schemes, Hargar Lakpati and SBI Patrons.
Interesting.
So Hargar Lakpati aims to, I guess, get more people saving regularly.
Yeah, every home a millionaire, that's what the name means. It's a recurring deposit scheme, so you deposit a set amount each month and earn interest.
Ah, makes sense.
But here's the unique part, it's open to minors too, trying to get people thinking about financial planning early.
Smart move, especially with the government pushing for more financial literacy these days. What about that second scheme, SBI Patrons?
That one's targeted at senior citizens, 80 and above, offers them higher interest rates on fixed deposits.
So kind of acknowledging their long relationship with the bank and their specific needs. Now, for our UPSC folks out there, you got to think beyond just the facts. How do these schemes fit into the government's overall approach to financial inclusion?
Right, it's all about the bigger picture. What's the role of these institutions? How do these schemes impact different parts of society?
That's what'll make your exam answers stand out. Now, let's move from individual finances to the national logistics scene. The Logistics Ease Across Different States report, the LEDS report for 2024, just came out.
Lots of good insights there. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry put it out, and it ranks all the states and union territories based on how well they're doing with logistics.
So we're talking infrastructure, services, regulations, the whole nine yards, right?
Yeah, and this year they've added a new element, sustainable logistics.
Oh, that's interesting. They've also divided states into achievers, fast movers, and aspirers.
Makes it easy to see who's leading the pack.
In the coastal states, we've got Gujarat, Karnataka, and Maharashtra as achievers. For landlocked states, Haryana, Telangana, and Uttar Pradesh are at the top. And for the Northeast, Assam and Arunachal Pradesh are doing well.
Yep, and categorizing them like this encourages some healthy competition, right? Helps identify areas for improvement. But back to that sustainable logistics thing, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, what exactly does that mean?
Basically, it's all about making sure transportation and logistics don't harm the environment.
So less pollution, more efficient routes, maybe eco-friendly packaging, that kind of thing.
Exactly, and this connects to so much of the UPSC syllabus. Economy, infrastructure, environmental sustainability. It's a global trend, folks, not just a buzzword.
So UPSC aspirants, don't just skim this report. Really dig in. Compare how states are doing. What are the factors behind those rankings? How does it all impact India's economic growth?
It's about showing you can think critically, not just memorize facts.
Okay, enough of the serious stuff for a minute. Time for some, well, something prettier.
What do you have in mind?
Butterflies. A rare one called the banded royal has been spotted. And get this, for the first time in Tripura's Sepahala Wildlife Sanctuary.
Wow, that's cool. The banded royal, or Rachana Jalindra Indra, if you want to get scientific, it's quite a sight. Males have the, deep purple or blue sheen with dark brown borders. Females are more brownish with white markings. Underneath, they're pale brown with, you guessed it, white bands.
Ah, hence the name.
This discovery tells us more about where they live and their habitat, which is really valuable.
And speaking of habitat, Sebahala Wildlife Sanctuary is like a biodiversity treasure trove. It's only about 25 kilometers from Agartala and covers over 18 square kilometers.
And it's home to tons of different species. Clouded leopards, mongooses, all sorts of primates and birds. There's even a clouded leopard national park within the sanctuary.
Oh, and did I mention the two natural lakes?
It's a great example of how important these protected areas are. Even small discoveries like this butterfly sighting can change our understanding of biodiversity.
Don't forget, the banded royal is protected under Schedule 2 of the Indian Wildlife Protection Act of 1972.
Which every UPSC aspirant should know.
Exactly. Now, for something a bit more serious, China's seeing a spike in respiratory diseases, and Human Metapneumovirus, HMPV, is one of the culprits. Sounds pretty scary.
HMTV usually just causes mild symptoms, kind of like a cold, cough, runny nose, sore throat, maybe a fever, sometimes wheezing. Most people get over it in a few days.
Okay, so not as scary as it sounds.
No vaccine or specific treatment yet, though.
So basic hygiene is still our best defense.
Right. Washing hands, covering your mouth when you cough, that sort of thing. But it can sometimes cause more serious problems like bronchitis or even pneumonia, especially for those who are already vulnerable. So definitely something to keep an eye on.
Speaking of keeping an eye on things, here in India, we've got another health concern. High nitrate levels have been found in groundwater across a whopping 440 districts, and this can lead to blue baby syndrome in infants.
Blue baby syndrome, or methemoglobinemia, happens when nitrates in the water mess with the blood's ability to carry oxygen. Infants are especially vulnerable because their bodies are still developing.
And what are the symptoms?
Well, as the name suggests, the baby's skin can have a bluish tint. They might have trouble breathing, vomiting, diarrhea, just generally seem very tired. And in severe cases, it can even be fatal.
This brings up a really important point for UPSC aspirants: how interconnected environmental pollution, public health, and governance are. It's not just about knowing what causes blue baby syndrome, it's about understanding the bigger picture. Things like agricultural runoff, water contamination, lack of access to clean drinking water, and what the government can do to address these issues.
Right. Think about policies and initiatives to tackle water pollution, promote sustainable agriculture, and make sure everyone has access to clean, safe water.
Okay, let's shift gears to something more positive: technology. The Controller and Auditor General of India, the CAG, they're using a cool new digital tool called the Open Data Kit platform.
Yeah, the ODK platform is helping them become more efficient and transparent with how they collect and analyze data on government spending. It's integrated with their main operating system and can be used for things like beneficiary surveys, which helps them identify problem areas that need a closer look.
So they used it at AIIMS, Mongalagiri, and Bibinagar to assess patient satisfaction and gather evidence during their audits. Pretty innovative, right?
And what's great is that ODK is open source, which means it's free to use and can be adapted to different needs. Huge potential for promoting transparency and accountability, not just in India, but globally.
Plus, it's end-to-end encrypted so that data stays secure and private. UPSC folks, this is a textbook example of e-governance in action. You need to know about these platforms, how they work, and how they're changing the way things are done in India.
Absolutely. It's all about recognizing the link between technological advancements and good governance, a key theme you'll see come up in the UPSC syllabus.
Now let's talk about Project VISTAAR, a cool initiative that's bridging the gap between technology and agriculture.
VISTAAR stands for Virtually Integrated System to Access Agricultural Resources, and it's a joint effort between IIT Madras and the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare.
It's basically a digital platform that connects farmers with over 12,000 agricultural startups, giving them access to all the latest tech and services.
Exactly. Say a farmer is having trouble with pests or irrigation. They can use VISTAAR to find startups offering specific solutions for their needs. The platform also provides information on government schemes and initiatives. It's like a one-stop shop for farmers to find resources and information.
And that's what digitization in agriculture really means, right? Putting all that info in a digital format so it's easier to access, share, and analyze.
Huge potential to boost agricultural productivity and rural development.
This project touches on so many relevant UPSC topics: agriculture, rural development, government schemes, tech for social good.
It's not just about knowing what the project is, but understanding its potential impact and how it ties into the broader goals of modernizing agriculture and making it more sustainable.
Exactly. Okay, time for a little change of pace. Let's talk about methylcobalamin, which is a naturally occurring form of vitamin B12.
Right. You might be familiar with cyanocobalamin, the synthetic version you often find in supplements. But methylcobalamin has a different chemical structure, and it's really important for a lot of different things our bodies do.
Like what?
Well, it's essential for making red blood cells, keeping our nerves healthy, DNA synthesis, and producing energy.
Helps prevent anemia, gives you more energy, even plays a role in mental health by supporting neurotransmitter production. Pretty impressive.
You can get it from foods like fish, meat, eggs, and dairy, but sometimes people need supplements. And that's where the FSSAI comes in.
Right, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. They make sure food is safe, including supplements like methylcobalamin.
They set standards, do inspections, enforce regulations, all to make sure businesses are following safety guidelines, protecting consumers and building trust in the food industry.
So understanding the role of the FSSAI and how it impacts public health is essential for the UPSC. It connected things like food security, nutrition, and consumer protection.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we move on, let's do a quick recap. We started with the new financial schemes from SBI. Then we moved on to the Layers report on logistics performance.
We even talked about that exciting discovery of the rare butterfly in Tripura.
We also discussed public health concerns like HMPV in China and high nitrate levels in our groundwater.
And we saw how technology is being used to improve governance with the CAG's ODK platform. platform and to empower farmers through Project VISTAAR.
We even dove into methylcobalamin and the role of the FSSAI.
Phew, that's a lot.
I know, right? It's a lot to take in, but think of it as your daily dose of UPSC knowledge.
Building blocks for a strong foundation.
Now get ready for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore even more important events of the day. But before you hit play, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. We'll be right back. And we're back. Round 2 of today's news deep dive. Ready to keep going.
Absolutely. What's next?
Pensions. The Employees Provident Fund Organization, the EPFO, has fully rolled out the Centralized Pension Payment System, the CPPS. Big change for a lot of people.
Yeah, over 7.85 million pensioners, actually. You see, the old system wasn't centralized. Each regional EPFO office had separate agreements with just a few banks.
Oh, so if you moved or wanted to change banks, it was a pain.
Exactly. But with this new CPPS, pensioners can access their funds from any bank, any branch across the country. No more running around for physical verification or paperwork.
Makes life a lot easier. Good example of how tech can make things better for citizens, right?
Exactly. Improves those citizen-centric services. And UPSC folks, take note. This is the government using tech to improve service delivery.
It's all about understanding the EPFO. There are schemes like the Employees Provident Fund Scheme, the Employees Pension Scheme, and the Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme.
You've got the EPF, where both employee and employer contribute for retirement. Then there's the EPS, which gives you a monthly pension after you retire. And the EDLI, that provides financial help to families if the member passes away.
It's the foundation of India's social security system. Really important stuff.
Don't just memorize the names, though. Understand what they're for, how they impact people's lives, how they fit into the economy.
Now let's talk about something that affects business growth and the whole economy. E-auctions. The government's launched a new platform called BankNet.
Big step for asset recovery and transparency. BankNet brings together information on properties that public sector banks are putting up for e-auction.
So if you're looking to buy property, this is the place to be.
Pretty much. Residential, commercial, industrial, even agricultural land, it's all there.
And it sounds pretty user-friendly. Automated payments, KYC tools, dashboards for keeping track of spending.
The whole process is just smoother and more transparent.
And this is where it gets interesting for our UPSC peeps. BankNet helps these public sector banks recover what are called non-performing assets, NPAs.
Basically, loans that haven't been repaid.
So reducing those NPAs is good for the banks, keeps credit flowing, helps the economy grow.
Everyone wins. Banks get their money back, buyers get assets, and the economy gets a boost.
Okay, let's zoom in on transparency and accountability and governance. We've already touched on the CAG and their new digital tool, but their role is much bigger than that.
Right. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India, they're independent, answerable only to the Constitution. Their job is to audit the accounts of the central and state governments, any government-owned entity, really.
Like financial watchdogs, making sure everything is accounted for and used properly.
And they don't hold back. Their reports often expose mismanagement, irregularities, anything that's not quite right.
And those reports are presented to Parliament and the state legislatures, so it's all out in the open.
That public scrutiny is essential. Holds the government accountable and makes sure public funds are used responsibly.
UPSC aspirants, you need to understand this. The CAG's function, why the reports are important. It's all about those checks and balances, ensuring things are done honestly, and that these independent institutions are there to keep things transparent.
Now remember, Project VISTAAR, the one connecting farmers with agricultural startups.
Yep.
Well, there's a link between that and another organization, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, the FSSAI.
Ah, I see what you mean. VISTAAR gives farmers the tech, and the FSSAI makes sure the food they produce, the food we all eat, is safe and good quality.
Exactly. It all ties together. Agriculture, tech, food safety. You need a joined-up approach to tackle issues like food security and public health.
The FSSAI sets standards, inspects things, enforces regulations, makes sure businesses are playing by the rules. They're protecting us, the consumers.
They build trust in the food industry. Understanding what they do and how they impact public health is important for the UPSC. Food security, nutrition, consumer protection, it all links back.
Okay, back to health for a bit. We talked about vitamin B12 before, but there's that specific form, methylcobalamin, that we should highlight again.
Right, it's the naturally occurring one. Unlike the synthetic cyanocobalamin you find in some supplements, it's crucial for making red blood cells, keeping our nerves healthy, DNA synthesis, energy production, all sorts of things.
It's linked to preventing anemia, boosting energy, even improving mental health.
And while you can get it from food, sometimes people need to take supplements. Our bodies can convert cyanocobalamin to methylcobalamin, but it's not always that efficient.
So in some cases, taking a methylcobalamin supplement directly might be better.
Always good to talk to a doctor before starting any new supplements, though.
Absolutely. Now let's jump back to the digital world. Let's explore encryption a bit more. We mentioned it when we talked about that ODK platform the CAG is using.
Encryption is basically like a digital shield. It protects information by scrambling it up so only those with the right key can read it, like a digital lock.
The ODK platform uses what's called end-to-end encryption. The data is protected from the moment it's collected all the way through to when it's stored and analyzed.
Super important for data privacy and security, especially with all the cyber attacks and data breaches happening these days.
Future civil servants, pay attention. Understanding encryption and how it's used in e-governance is crucial.
It's all part of the changing landscape of public administration. Technology is transforming how the government works. It's not enough to just know what encryption is. You need to understand what it means for data security, for people's privacy, for public trust.
Now, for something a little different, we've been talking about methylcobalamin and its role in health, but there's another compound, methylene blue, that's also used in medicine.
You might know it as a dye, and it is used for that, but it has medical uses too.
Really?
Yeah. It's used as an antidote for cyanide poisoning, a treatment for methemoglobinemia, that's blue baby syndrome, remember, even as a diagnostic tool in some procedures.
Wow, pretty versatile.
And there's some exciting research on its potential to treat Alzheimer's disease. It might be able to slow down how the disease progresses.
That would be huge for so many people.
It's still early days, more research is needed, but the initial findings are promising.
Now, let's circle back to public sector banks, or PSBs. We talked about that BankNet portal and how it helps recover NPAs.
Right. PSBs are banks where the government is the majority shareholder.
And they make up a huge part of the Indian banking system.
More than 70% of deposits and advances, they're essential for financial inclusion, reaching even remote areas. They support vital sectors like agriculture, small businesses, infrastructure.
Understanding the challenges they face and what the government's doing to make them stronger is key for the UPSC. It shows you understand the government's focus on financial inclusion, economic growth, and social development.
And let's not forget that banded royal butterfly we talked about earlier, the one spotted in Tripura's Sepahihala Wildlife Sanctuary.
Yeah, a nice bit of good news.
It might seem like a small thing, but it tells us more about where this butterfly lives and why protecting biodiversity is so important.
It reminds us of how ecologically important the Northeast is, with all its biodiversity, and how it's facing threats from habitat loss, deforestation, and climate change.
Understanding those challenges is key for tackling environmental issues and creating sustainable development policies.
All right, last but not least, the stock market. We won't dive deep into the complexities of trading today, but as future policymakers, you should understand the basics of how it works and its impact on the economy.
Think of it as a gauge of how the economy is doing. It reflects how confident investors are and the overall mood of the market.
How the stock market performs can have a big effect on economic growth, jobs, investments.
Understanding what causes those ups and downs, things like government policies, global trends, how companies are doing, it's all important. It helps you grasp how the financial system works and how it's connected to the real economy.
Before we head to the final part of our deep dive, remember all the connections we've made between these different events.
Seemingly unrelated things are often connected in surprising ways.
That's what the UPSC is all about. Understanding the bigger picture, seeing those connections, figuring out what it all means.
It's about developing a well-rounded understanding of the complex challenges and opportunities facing India and the world.
And one more exciting segment coming up with even more insights and things to think about. But before you jump in, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out. We'll be right back. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. We've explored a lot today, from financial schemes to environmental worries, tech breakthroughs, and even the complexities of public health. But we're not quite done yet. Got a few more thought-provoking topics to cover. So, ready for the final stretch?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Okay, let's talk about something that's at the core of the UPSC exam, and really at the heart of what India is all about, the Constitution. Now, we're not going to go through every single article today, but let's revisit those fundamental principles: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity.
Those aren't just lofty ideals. They're the guiding principles for everything a civil servant does. Really understanding them is key to analyzing policies, events, social issues, the whole works.
Every decision you make, every policy you implement, it should all be grounded in those principles. It's about fairness, protecting individual freedoms, promoting equal opportunities, creating a sense of unity among all citizens.
It's about putting those ideals into action, shaping a society that truly embodies those values.
Now let's zoom out from the national scene for a moment. International relations, that's a landscape that's constantly shifting.
Yeah.
Countries interacting like players on a massive chessboard, each move influenced by power dynamics, diplomacy, economic interests, even culture.
And India's role on that chessboard is becoming more and more crucial. Understanding the major players, the alliances, the conflicts, it's all essential for analyzing India's foreign policy and its place in the world.
Imagine you're in the Ministry of External Affairs, negotiating a trade deal or responding to some international crisis. Your understanding of international relations is your guide, helping you navigate those complexities.
Remember, the UPSC isn't just about knowing facts. It's about knowing how to apply them to real situations.
Now let's bring it back to your everyday life as a UPSC aspirant, current affairs. The news cycle never stops. But it's not about just passively reading headlines. It's about connecting the dots, analyzing what it all means, forming your own informed opinions.
That's what sets successful UPSC aspirants apart. The ability to see how seemingly unrelated events are connected, to anticipate challenges, to think critically about the information they're taking in.
So keep reading those newspapers, articles, magazines, all of it. But don't just absorb the information. Engage with it. Question the assumptions, consider different perspectives, and develop your own well-reasoned opinions.
It's like working out your brain. The more you use it, the stronger and more flexible it becomes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into today's news, let's leave you with one final question to ponder. Picture yourself 5 years from now. You've aced the UPSC exam, you're out there making a difference, you're faced with a complex policy decision, one with the potential to affect millions of lives.
This decision requires you to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability, navigate international pressures, and uphold the constitutional principles of justice and equality. It's a tough one.
What factors will you prioritize?
Yeah.
How will you use technology in a way that's ethical and effective? And maybe most importantly, how will you make sure your decision truly reflects the needs and aspirations of the people you're serving?
This isn't just some thought experiment. It's a glimpse into your future as a leader in the Indian civil service.
So keep those questions in mind as you continue on your UPSC journey. Let them guide your preparation and shape the kind of leader you want to become. And with that, it's time for us to sign off. Best of luck to all our aspiring civil servants out there.
Keep learning, keep growing, and best of luck on your exams.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this deep dive with your fellow UPSC aspirants. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing yourselves. Until next time.